Welcome to my channel. Today, we are exploring one of the most incredible stories in human history, the country that stole its land from the ocean. Did you know that nearly half of the Netherlands used to be underwater? Through centuries of hard work, clever engineering, and teamwork, the Dutch people fought the powerful sea and created their own nation. Sit back, listen carefully, and get ready to upgrade your English listening skills today. Long ago, the beautiful land we call the Netherlands was not a safe or easy place to live. It was completely full of wild seawater, deep mud, thick swamps, and wet marshes. Every single day, the cold water from the ocean pushed very hard against the soft land. Big storms came very often, and giant sea waves washed away whole villages in a few minutes. The early people who lived in this region had to be extremely brave every day. They did not have modern machines, strong concrete, or heavy metal tools to help them. They only had their own hands, basic wooden spades, and simple baskets. To keep their families and children safe from the constant rising water, these early people came up with a very clever idea. They began to build large mounds of dirt, clay, and mud entirely by hand. These raised dirt hills were called terps by the local people. When the ocean water came flooding in over the flat green grass, people quickly ran up to the top of their terp with their farm animals. They sat together on top of the high mud hill and waited patiently for the stormy water to go back out to sea. It was a very hard, cold, and terrifying way to live, but it was their very first small victory against the powerful ocean. As time went on, the small local population grew much bigger and stronger. They quickly realized that living on small dirt mounds was simply not enough for everyone. They urgently needed more dry land to grow grain, build comfortable wooden homes, and raise their farm animals. So they started to think much bigger than before. They decided to construct long, thick walls made of heavy clay, dark soil, and wooden logs all along the edge of the water. These primitive walls were the very first dikes in human history. Building a dike required an enormous amount of slow, painful, and exhausting physical work. Men, women, and even older children carried heavy baskets of wet clay on their backs for many miles every single day. They worked hard under the cold gray rain and strong winds for many months without stopping. When a violent storm hit the coast, it often broke right through their fresh dirt walls and ruined all their hard work. But the determined people refused to give up. They rebuilt the broken walls again and again. This was the true beginning of a long, endless fight between human will and the power of the natural sea. Living right next to the wild sea completely changed how these people thought about life, survival, and community work. They quickly understood that one single person or one single family could never stop a giant sea flood alone. Therefore, people had to sit down together peacefully, talk carefully, and plan their daily work together as a strong group. They created small local water committees to inspect the safety of all protective dikes every week. This early cooperation became the very foundation of the famous Dutch culture of teamwork, equality, and mutual trust. They learned that working together was the only possible way to survive in a low and dangerous land. Every farmer had a very clear duty to repair and maintain a specific section of the long dirt dike near their home. If someone was lazy or careless, the entire village suffered terrible damage. Through hundreds of years of continuous digging and building, these tough coastal people slowly turned dangerous wet swamps into stable, productive farmland, setting the stage for an incredible national history of engineering miracles. By the middle of the Middle Ages, the brave people of the Netherlands faced a brand new and difficult engineering problem. They had successfully built strong dikes around large areas of low water, but the water trapped inside could not drain out into the sea by itself. Rain kept falling from the sky, and underground water kept rising up from under the earth continuously. The enclosed fields quickly turned into deep, muddy lakes where no crops could ever grow. The people urgently needed a powerful engine to lift millions of gallons of heavy water up and over the tall, protective dikes. The brilliant answer to this huge national problem was clean wind energy. The coastal regions of the Netherlands are extremely flat, so strong sea winds blow across the wide open fields almost every day without ever stopping. In the 15th century, clever Dutch builders began constructing large wooden windmills with huge rotating blades made of wood and canvas. They connected the giant turning central wheel of the windmill to an ancient water device called an Archimedes screw, or a large wooden paddle wheel. When the strong sea wind blew across the flat landscape, the enormous wooden blades turned round and round with great mechanical power. This continuous rotation turned the heavy inner gears, which lifted the muddy swamp water straight up into narrow, elevated drainage canals. These high canals then carried the unwanted water far away into the open ocean or major rivers. For the very first time in human history, natural wind power was being used on a massive scale to create brand new dry land from the bottom of deep lakes. Creating new dry land using windmills was a very slow, careful, and precise process called polder reclamation. First, hard-working laborers built a solid ring dike all the way around a shallow lake or a wet marsh. Then they built a strategic network of several windmills along the outer edge of the main dike. Sometimes one single windmill was not strong enough to lift the heavy water high enough into the ocean canal. In those complex cases, they built a stair-like line of 3, 4, or 5 windmills in a straight row. The first windmill in the line lifted the muddy water to a slightly higher canal. The second windmill lifted that exact same water to an even higher canal, and the third windmill finally pushed it over the big outer dike into the flowing river. This clever system was called a windmill step pump, and it operated with amazing technical efficiency. Dozens of wide, deep lakes and wet swamps completely disappeared over a few short decades, replaced by fresh, fertile green grass. These newly created dry land areas were called polders, and they provided rich soil for growing delicious crops and feeding healthy dairy cows. The skyline of the entire Netherlands was completely transformed by thousands of tall wooden windmills turning gracefully together in the fresh sea breeze. Windmills became the ultimate worldwide symbol of Dutch intelligence, determination, and technological victory. Without these magnificent wooden machines, half of the modern country of the Netherlands would simply not exist anywhere on the map today. With their newly created dry land, growing food supply, and booming confidence, the Dutch people turned their active attention to the vast open oceans of the world. In the 17th century, a small nation of just 2 million people entered an incredible historical era known worldwide as the Dutch Golden Age. They were no longer just fighting the cold water at home. They were now using global ocean pathways to build the richest, most successful trading empire the world had ever witnessed. In the year 1602, the Dutch government helped create a famous international trading enterprise called the Dutch East India Company, widely known as the VOC. The VOC was not just a regular group of simple merchants. It was the very first publicly traded megacorporation in human history. Anyone living in the vibrant city of Amsterdam, from a very rich noble merchant to a humble housemaid, could easily buy shares of stock in the company and own a small piece of its future financial profits. The VOC built a massive, impressive fleet of fast, highly efficient merchant ships called flights. These special wooden ships were light, cheap to construct, and required a very small crew to operate across vast ocean distances safely. Brave Dutch sailors traveled across thousands of miles of dangerous, unknown ocean waters to reach distant, exotic lands in Asia, Africa, and the Americas. They traded eagerly in highly valuable spices like black pepper, nutmeg, aromatic cinnamon, and cloves, which were worth their weight in pure gold across Europe. The bustling city of Amsterdam quickly became the central financial capital and primary trading hub of the entire European continent. Giant ocean ships arriving from every corner of the globe docked daily at the busy harbor, loaded with rich silk, fragrant tea, delicate porcelain, heavy timber, and precious metals. The world's very first modern stock exchange was established in Amsterdam, where thousands of traders bought and sold company shares and trade goods every single day. Tremendous wealth flowed into the small nation like an endless golden river. This incredible economic prosperity powered a magnificent cultural explosion of fine art, advanced science, and higher learning. Famous master painters like Rembrandt and Vermeer created breathtaking, timeless artworks that captured the rich daily life, soft indoor light, and proud spirit of the Dutch people. Brilliant scientists designed powerful new microscopes and advanced telescopes, making revolutionary scientific discoveries about microscopic biology and distant stars. The small Dutch Republic became a world-renowned beacon of individual freedom, religious tolerance, and intellectual progress. However, this golden era was also built on aggressive commercial expansion, strict trade monopolies, and intense global competition. The powerful Dutch Navy fought several major sea wars against rival European powers like England and Spain to defend their valuable ocean trade routes. The VOC grew so immensely powerful that it maintained its own private army, operated its own heavy warships, and held full authority to establish colonies worldwide. The small, wet swamp nation had successfully transformed itself into the undisputed master of international trade and global power. Despite their grand national wealth, world-class sailing ships, and engineering pride, the Dutch people could never completely escape the constant, silent threat of the ocean. The sea was an unpredictable, sleeping giant that occasionally woke up with terrible, destructive fury. Throughout their long and eventful history, violent storm surges repeatedly broke through the protective dikes, brutally reminding the citizens that their ongoing battle with nature was far from over. One of the most terrifying and tragic events in modern Dutch history occurred in the year 1953. On a freezing cold winter night in late January, a fierce, historic storm raged furiously over the icy North Sea. High spring ocean tides combined with violent gale-force winds, created an enormous, towering wall of seawater that slammed directly into the southwestern coast of the Netherlands with unbelievable kinetic force. The old, worn-down dirt dikes simply could not hold back the enormous surge. In the middle of the pitch-black night, while thousands of innocent families were sleeping peacefully in their warm beds, the ancient seawalls collapsed simultaneously in dozens of places along the coast. Cold, salty ocean water flooded rapidly into quiet towns, sleeping rural villages, and fertile green farmlands. Heavy houses made of brick and strong wood collapsed instantly under the tremendous pressure of the roaring water. Thousands of terrified people were suddenly trapped on top of cold roofs or in dark attics as the sea level rose higher and higher. The immediate aftermath of the 1953 flood disaster was deeply heartbreaking and utterly devastating for the entire nation. More than 1,800 innocent people lost their lives in the freezing water, and over 70,000 people were left completely homeless, without food, shelter, or clean drinking water. Tens of thousands of valuable farm animals drowned, and vast stretches of rich agricultural land were completely ruined by salty seawater. The entire country went into deep national mourning, gripped by profound shock, sorrow, and fear. This awful human tragedy served as a dramatic and urgent wake-up call for both the national government and the general public. The nation collectively realized that relying on old dirt walls and plain good luck was no longer acceptable in a modern civilized society. They swore together that a disaster of this terrible scale must never, ever be allowed to happen again. The government immediately assembled the brightest engineers, top scientists, and urban planners in the country to design a bold, revolutionary plan to protect the land forever. This grand protective vision was officially named the Delta Works Project, which would become one of the most ambitious and complex engineering projects in human history. The ultimate main goal was to design and construct a colossal system of giant sea barriers, heavy concrete dams, and adjustable storm surge gates across all the wide, dangerous river mouths in the southwest. The Dutch firmly decided that instead of just repairing broken dirt dikes after a flood, they would completely lock out the wild ocean whenever dangerous winter storms approached. The construction of the massive Delta Works was a monumental historic task that took over 4 full decades of continuous hard work, creative scientific research, and massive financial investment. Dutch engineers had to invent entirely new physical technologies, materials, and heavy machinery to build colossal concrete structures directly inside deep, fast-moving ocean currents. The entire world watched in pure awe and amazement as the small nation began constructing the largest and most advanced coastal defense system on planet Earth. The absolute crown jewel of the entire Delta Works project is the world-famous Eastern Scheldt storm surge barrier. Originally, traditional engineers planned to build a completely solid, permanent closed dam across the wide ocean estuary. However, thousands of local fishermen and passionate environmental scientists protested loudly because a solid dam would destroy the delicate marine ecosystem and kill millions of sea creatures. Listening closely to these important environmental concerns, the flexible engineers redesigned the entire massive project in a brilliant way. Instead of a plain, solid concrete wall, they constructed 62 giant concrete pillars directly in the deep-sea floor and installed massive movable steel gates between each pair of pillars. Under normal, calm weather conditions, These giant steel gates remain raised high in the air, allowing natural ocean tides, salty water, and rich marine life to flow freely in and out of the bay. But when a dangerous winter storm approaches and sea levels rise to threat levels, automated computer systems lower all 62 giant steel gates simultaneously, creating a solid, unbreakable shield against the raging sea. Another incredible engineering masterpiece of the project is the world-famous Maasland barrier, located near the major international port city of Rotterdam. This gigantic structure consists of two massive floating steel arms that are each as long as the famous Eiffel Tower in Paris is tall. Under normal weather conditions, these enormous steel arms rest quietly on dry land along opposite sides of the riverbanks, allowing giant international cargo ships to pass freely into the busy port without any delay whatsoever. When a severe, dangerous ocean storm is detected by advanced weather radar, the massive steel arms automatically float out into the middle of the wide river, fill their large internal hollow tanks with heavy water, and sink firmly onto the riverbed. This forms a massive, impenetrable wall of solid steel that completely blocks towering storm waves from hitting the city. Once the storm passes and the sea calms down completely, the water is pumped back out of the arms and they float gracefully back to their original resting places on the dry shore. Together, the Delta Works and the Maasland Barrier are widely recognized by international experts as one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. They showcase the ultimate historical victory of human intelligence, mechanical ingenuity, and environmental respect over the wild, unpredictable power of nature. Thanks to these magnificent modern technological barriers, millions of Dutch citizens can now live, work, raise families, and sleep safely every night below sea level without ever fearing the roaring ocean. Today, nearly half of the entire geographic land area of the Netherlands lies directly below sea level, including famous modern cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague. Millions of happy citizens go to work, drive on modern highways, ride their bicycles, and sleep comfortably every night in low-lying areas that used to be deep underwater. The determined Dutch people have successfully stolen their land from the ocean, but keeping that precious land safe and dry is an ongoing, lifelong national commitment. In the modern 21st century, a dangerous new global challenge has emerged that threatens low-lying coastal nations everywhere: rapid global climate change. Rising global atmospheric temperatures are causing giant polar ice caps to melt at an alarming speed, leading to steadily rising ocean levels worldwide. At the same time, severe weather patterns are bringing much heavier rainfall and stronger storms to Western Europe. The Dutch people are once again facing a major historical test of their physical survival and engineering creativity. Instead of simply building higher, thicker, and more expensive concrete walls, modern Dutch water management experts are taking a revolutionary new ecological approach called room for the river. They have wisely recognized that constantly fighting against rising river water with brute mechanical force is no longer the smartest or safest long-term strategy. Instead, they are giving wide rivers more natural space to expand safely during heavy rains by lowering river floodplains, relocating certain ancient farm dikes further inland, and creating temporary emergency flood storage basins. Furthermore, innovative Dutch cities are adopting fascinating urban design solutions to manage heavy rainwater and rising ocean tides efficiently. In the vibrant city of Rotterdam, creative architects have designed clever water plazas, public parks, and sports fields that double as giant water storage basins during heavy rainstorms. They are also constructing floating neighborhoods, floating dairy farms, and flexible floating houses that naturally rise and fall with changing water levels, proving to the world that humans can live harmoniously alongside water. The inspiring Dutch story offers profound, practical, and highly valuable lessons for the entire international community as coastal cities everywhere face rising sea levels. World-renowned water experts from the Netherlands now travel regularly to every corner of the globe, from New Orleans to Jakarta, Vietnam, and Bangladesh, helping other vulnerable nations design effective flood defenses, smart canals, and sustainable water management systems. The Dutch have brilliantly transformed their main historical weakness into world-leading technical expertise and international leadership. The history of the Netherlands is a truly extraordinary and inspiring tale of human courage, relentless innovation, social unity, and hard work. It proves beyond doubt that when human beings come together with a clear shared purpose, they can overcome even the most daunting natural challenges on Earth. As long as the cold ocean wind continues to blow and the tides continue to rise, the proud people of the Netherlands will keep innovating, adapting, and standing tall on the land they reclaimed from the deep blue sea.